The rain had started before sunset, and now it poured like the sky was trying to wash the world away. People rushed past, umbrellas high, coats tight. No one looked twice at the boy curled behind the grocery store dumpster, wrapped in a thin blanket that was soaked through. Eli pressed his knees to his chest and tried to breathe slowly. The cold made his fingers numb. His stomach hurt, but he'd gotten used to that part. The store lights had gone out an hour ago. No one was left inside. Just trash bins, puddles, and silence. Then he heard a low rustle, a shuffle of paws on wet pavement. Eli turned his head slowly. There, just a few feet away, stood a German shepherd, tall, lean, his fur matted, his ribs showing, but his eyes sharp and alert. The dog didn't growl, didn't move. He just stared. Eli didn't move either. He'd seen stray dogs before. Some barked, some chased. But this one looked like he was deciding something. After a minute, the dog took a slow step. Forward, then another. Still no sound. Eli whispered, "You lost too." The dog's ears, flicked. Another gust of wind sent shivers down Eli's spine. His blanket was barely helping. The dog lowered his head and sniffed the corner of the blanket. Where it touched the ground, Eli hesitated. He looked at the dog's soaked fur, the way he was shaking. Then, without thinking, he lifted the corner of the blanket. "You can share, if you want." The dog looked at him for a second longer, and then he stepped closer and lay down. Not touching, but close enough to share the warmth. Eli smiled, just a little. He didn't know why he did it. Maybe because someone had once done the same for him, long ago, before the system, before the moving, before the empty beds and fake smiles. The dog lay his head on his paws, eyes still watching. "He didn't sleep," Eli whispered. "I used to have a dog. Her name was Mags. She ran faster than the wind. The dog didn't blink. She got taken away when I was 6. Shelter rules. The wind howled above the buildings. I didn't even get to say goodbye. The dog let out a soft breath, like a sigh. Eli looked down at him. "Do you have a name?" No response. "Of course. I guess I'll call you Shadow, 'cause you don't make a sound, and you just appeared." The dog flicked an ear. "Yeah, Shadow fits." They sat like that for a long time. Rain slowed. The world grew quieter. Eli pulled the blanket tighter. His fingers brushed the dog's fur. Cold and rough. But the dog didn't pull away. "Don't have anyone either, do you?" Still no answer, but Eli could feel it. A kind of quiet understanding between them. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a half-crushed granola bar. It was all he had left. "You hungry?" He unwrapped it slowly and broke off a small piece. Shadow lifted his head. "Here." Eli placed it on the ground between them. The dog sniffed, then carefully took it with his teeth. He chewed slowly, then looked back at Eli. "Sorry, that's all I've got." Shadow lay his head down again. "You can stay," Eli whispered. "If you want." Minutes passed. The blanket now covered half of the dog's body. The warmth wasn't much, but it was something. Eli leaned back against the wall. His eyes felt heavy. Just before they closed, he felt the dog shift. Shadow moved. Closer. Just enough that their sides touched. Eli didn't say anything, but his lips curved into a soft, tired smile. For the first time in weeks, he didn't feel completely alone. Morning came gray and cold. Eli opened his eyes to soft breathing beside him. Shadow was still there, still watching, still staying. Eli woke to the sound of passing cars and the soft thump of a tail against wet concrete. Shadow was still there. The German shepherd hadn't left. He was lying right next to Eli, his side warm against the boy's back. His eyes were open, watching the world like he'd never really slept. Eli blinked, trying to shake off the cold. "You didn't run." Shadow looked at him but didn't move. Eli sat up, pulling the blanket tighter around himself. It was damp and smelled like old trash, but it was all he had. He expected to see the dog gone when he opened his eyes. Just another thing that left. But he wasn't gone. "I guess you're really staying," Eli whispered. The dog gave one small wag of his tail. They got up together. The alley was quiet now, the morning light dull and grey. Eli walked toward the street, hoping maybe someone had thrown out something edible. Shadow followed, silent as ever. Eli glanced down. "You're really just gonna follow me?" The shepherd didn't answer, just padded behind him, step for step. "All right then," Eli muttered. "Just don't expect me to carry you or anything." They crossed a few back streets, moving through narrow paths behind closed shops. Eli knew this area too well. He'd slept behind most of these dumpsters at least once, but never with someone. Walking beside him, he reached the corner of a bakery and checked the trash bin. A few crusts of bread, half a sandwich. He stuffed it into his pocket. Shadow sat nearby, watching him but not begging. "You're polite," Eli said. "Most dogs would have jumped right in." He tossed a piece of crust toward him. Shadow sniffed it, then ate it gently. "Good manners," Eli said. "You from a rich house or something?" The dog didn't answer, but something about him felt too controlled, like he wasn't new to this world, just tired of it. As they walked, Eli thought about the shelters. Not the kind with beds, those didn't let kids in without papers. He meant the places with fences and barking. If someone saw Shadow and called animal control, he shook the thought away. "You don't belong in a cage," Eli muttered. "I don't either." They passed a man sitting against a brick wall, wrapped in a torn jacket. He eyed Shadow nervously. "Better be careful, kid," the man said. "That dog looks like he's got fight in him." "He's with me," Eli replied. The man shrugged. They all leave eventually. Eli kept walking. Shadow followed, closer now. They made their way to the edge of the city park. It wasn't much, just a few swings and a bench. Eli sat down, and the dog lay at his feet. People walked by. Some stared. Others crossed the street. One woman whispered, "The boy's too young to be out here alone." Eli looked down at Shadow. They always say that, but no one stops. The dog looked up, ears twitching. "Everyone leaves," Eli said. "Foster homes, social workers, even teachers. They say they care, but they don't stay." He reached down and ran a hand over Shadow's back. "You're different." The dog stayed perfectly still, eyes on Eli, like he understood every word. "Guess you don't scare easy," Eli whispered. They spent most of the day drifting. The weather held up, but the cold didn't. By late afternoon, Eli's toes were numb. They found a spot behind an old bus station and curled up again. This time, Shadow lay even closer. His chest rose and fell, slow and steady, like a heartbeat Eli could lean into. As night came, Eli looked at him through half-closed eyes. "You're the first one who didn't walk away." Shadow shifted slightly, pressing his head against Eli's arm. For the first time in months, Eli didn't feel invisible. He didn't feel like trash on the side of the road. He felt seen, chosen, and for a boy like him, that was everything. Eli hadn't meant to fall asleep, but the bench was dry, and the cold had worn him out. Shadow was curled at his feet, ears twitching every time someone passed. The sun was barely up when boots stomped toward them. Not regular boots, thick, heavy ones that made the ground shake. "Hey," a deep voice barked. Eli jolted upright. Shadow shot to his feet. A city worker stood in front of them. Orange vest, clipboard in hand, scowl on his face. "You can't sleep here," the man said. "Move along." Eli sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. Shadow stood between them, body stiff. "We weren't bothering anyone," Eli mumbled. The man took a step closer. "Park's not a shelter, kid. Take your mutt and get out." Eli saw Shadow's back rise, a low growl rumbling in his throat. "Easy, boy," Eli said, placing a hand on the dog's scruff. The man squinted. "Is he gonna bite?" "No," Eli said softly, "but he won't let you touch me either." The growl deepened. The shepherd didn't move, but his eyes locked onto the man like he was ready. The man raised his hands. "Fine, whatever. Just don't let that thing near anyone." "We're not staying," Eli said. He stood, still gripping Shadow's fur. The dog didn't take his eyes off the man until they were halfway across the street. Eli exhaled. His hands were shaking. Shadow looked up at him. "Thanks," Eli whispered. "You didn't have to do that." Shadow brushed against his leg. They found another bench, deeper into the park. Empty. No city workers. No people. Eli sat down again, his chest still tight from the scare. Shadow stayed standing this time, watching the path like a soldier. Eli looked at him. "You're not just a stray, are you?" The shepherd didn't blink. "I think you've done this before." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a half-eaten sandwich he'd saved from the night before. "Here," he said, tearing off a chunk and placing it near the dog's paws. Shadow sniffed it once and ate it gently. Eli leaned back. "Tired. You could have run when that guy yelled. Most dogs would have. But you didn't." He smiled a little. "You stayed." Shadow finally sat down, never facing away from the path. Eli closed his eyes for a moment. Then he whispered, "You're not just company anymore. You're watching over me, aren't you?" The wind blew softly, carrying leaves across the concrete, and Shadow didn't answer with words. He just stayed right where he was, guarding what little they had, guarding Eli. If you feel connected to this story, please like, share, and let know your city or country below. That night, Eli didn't want to sleep out in the open again. After what happened with the city worker, he and Shadow found a hidden spot beneath an old bridge on the edge of the city. The wind couldn't reach them there, and the concrete above kept the rain away. Eli curled against the wall, blanket over his legs, Shadow lying beside him. The sounds of cars passing above came and went like waves. Eli was half asleep when he heard something different. A sound, not wind, not cars, a soft groan, then a faint, broken cry. Eli sat up fast. "Did you hear that?" Shadow was already on his feet. Another noise, closer this time, like someone was struggling to breathe. Eli's heart raced. "Is someone down here?" Shadow moved into the dark, nose to the ground, body tense. Eli hesitated. He knew better than to chase shadows. But the look in Shadow's eyes wasn't fear. It was purpose. Eli grabbed his blanket, wrapped it around his shoulders, and followed. They moved deeper into the space beneath the bridge. It was colder back there, damp, the smell of rust and old garbage. Then he saw him. A boy, maybe 16, was crumpled behind a broken pipe. His face was pale, one arm bent wrong, his shirt stained with something dark. Eli froze. "Shadow," he whispered. The shepherd stepped forward, slowly. He lowered his head and gently licked the boy's cheek. The teen stirred, barely. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Eli dropped to his knees. Hey, are you okay?" No answer. He looked up at Shadow. "We need help." Shadow stood alert, tail low, eyes sharp. Eli pulled off the blanket and covered the boy's chest. "I don't know who you are," he whispered, "but we're not gonna leave you." The boy's eyes fluttered open, just for a second. Eli leaned closer. "You're safe now. You hear me?" He looked at Shadow. "We need someone. Anyone." Shadow turned and darted back the way they came. Eli stayed with the boy, holding his wrist, checking for a pulse the way he'd seen on TV. It was faint, but it was there. Minutes passed, then footsteps, fast ones. Shadow returned, and behind him, a woman in a nurse's jacket with a flashlight. "I saw your dog barking near the road," she said, panting. "He wouldn't stop until I followed him." Eli pointed. "He's here. He's hurt bad." The woman knelt down and felt the boy's neck. "He's freezing," she said. "Pulse is weak. We need to call for help now." Eli watched her take out her phone and speak quickly. She moved like she'd done this before. Shadow stood beside Eli, his body brushing the boy's leg like a guard. Eli looked up at him. "You found him?" Shadow didn't respond. He just stayed close, like he knew the job wasn't done. An ambulance came 10 minutes later. Flashing lights filled the space under the bridge. The boy was lifted onto a stretcher and wheeled away. The woman gave Eli a soft look. "You saved his life," she said. Eli shook his head. "It wasn't me." She glanced at the dog. "Well, then thank your partner." When it got quiet again, Eli sat back on the ground, his hands still shaking. Shadow came over and nuzzled his shoulder. "You knew he was there," Eli said softly. "I don't know how, but you knew." He stared into the night. "I think you were meant to find me, just so you could find him." Shadow rested his head on Eli's lap, eyes finally closing. That night, under that cold bridge, Eli didn't feel small anymore. Not forgotten, not useless. He had nothing, but he had a dog who saved lives, and that meant something. Maybe everything, morning, came with sirens and footsteps. After a long night under the bridge, Eli didn't sleep much. The boy they'd found, Tila, was still weak. He could walk now, barely, but not far. His lips were cracked, and every breath sounded like it hurt. Eli helped him sit up while Shadow stood nearby, never looking away. "You good to move?" Eli asked. Tyler gave a small nod. "I think so." Eli looked at Shadow. "We can't stay under this bridge forever." There was only one place Eli could think of: an old shelter on 3rd Street. He'd never gone there himself. Rumors said they were strict, but it was dry and they had food. He figured it was worth a shot for Tyler's sake. They walked slow. Tyler leaned on Eli, stumbling every few feet. Shadow walked beside them, brushing Tyler's leg when he wobbled too much. It took almost an hour to reach the shelter. The outside looked clean. A bell above the door jingled as they stepped inside. A tall man in a blue vest walked over. Eli cleared his throat. "He needs help," he said. "He's hurt. Been on the street a while." The man looked at Tyler, then at Eli. "Where are your parents?" he asked. Eli didn't answer. Shadow stepped closer to his side. The man frowned. "You can stay for the night," he said, "but the dog stays outside." Eli blinked. "What? No animals allowed," the man said. "Policy." Eli shook his head. "He's not just a dog. He saved Tyler's life." "I'm sorry," the man said, "but we don't make exceptions." Eli looked down at Shadow. The dog looked back at him, calm, like he already knew. Tyler whispered, "You can leave him outside, just for the night." Eli didn't move. His jaw clenched. "No," he said. "He's not a thing I drop off." The man crossed his arms. Then, "I'm afraid you can't stay here." Eli turned to Tyler. "We'll find somewhere else." "You don't have to. We're not leaving him," Eli said firmly. "He's family." The man didn't try to stop them, just turned away like. It didn't matter. Outside, the cold hit harder. The sun was already going down. Eli helped Tyler walk to a quiet alley a few blocks away. It was behind an old bakery. Smelled like flour and grease, but it was quiet, safe enough for the night. He laid Tyler down against the wall, then opened his backpack and pulled out the blanket. It wasn't much, just some worn fabric with holes at the corners, but it was all they had. Eli wrapped it around Tyler's legs, then sat beside him. Shadow curled against them both. "I'm sorry," Tyler whispered. "I didn't want to cause trouble." "You didn't," Eli said. "They just don't get it." Tyler glanced at the dog. "He'd never leave you, would he?" "Nope," Eli replied. "And I'm not leaving him." They sat in silence for a while, their breath fogging the air. Shadow rested his head on Eli's lap. "You cold, buddy," Eli whispered, stroking the shepherd's ears. Tyler looked down. "I've never had anyone stay for me." Eli looked at him. "You do now." The night grew darker, but somehow, with all three of them under one blanket, it didn't feel as cold. They didn't have a roof. They didn't have beds, but they had each other, and sometimes that's all you really need. Morning, after the alley campout, was colder than usual. Eli woke up stiff, with Shadow curled at his side and Tyler still asleep under the torn blanket. His stomach growled. He had one granola bar left. He broke it into 3 pieces. Tyler took his slowly. Shadow waited for Eli to nod before he ate. They didn't speak much. They were too tired, too cold. They just moved through back streets, behind stores, near the edge of the downtown. Blocks where people dropped food and looked the other way. It was around noon when they stopped behind a gas station to rest. Eli set his bag down and leaned against the wall while Shadow lay beside it, alert as always. Tyler was off using the bathroom inside. For a second, it felt normal, but then a man came round the corner. Big coat, dirty shoes, eyes too sharp. He didn't speak at first, just stared at the bag. Then he stepped closer. "Nice pack," he muttered. "What you got in there?" Eli stood up. "Nothing you want." The man ignored him and crouched down, reaching toward the zipper. Shadow's growl was instant. The man laughed. "That your guard dog, kid?" Eli moved in front of the bag. "Back off." The man's hand went out again. I said, "What's in it?" And that's when Shadow lunged. Teeth flashed. A single deep bark. And then his jaws clamped onto the man's arm. The man screamed, "Get him off." Eli grabbed Shadow's collar. "Stop, it's okay." "Let go." Shadow let go and stepped back, still growling. The man held his arm, blood running through his sleeve. "You crazy little freaks," he shouted. "That dog's dangerous. I'll call the cops." He staggered off, still yelling threats. Eli dropped to his knees beside Shadow and hugged him tightly. "You didn't let him hurt me," he whispered. "You stopped him." Shadow licked Eli's face once, then sat still, watching the alleyway. Tyler came running back. "What happened?" "Some guy tried to grab my stuff," Eli said. Shadow bit him. Tyler looked nervous. "People heard the screaming. They might call someone." Eli stood, grabbing the bag. "Then we move." They walked fast through the side streets, and Eli could feel it. The change. People stared now. Some crossed the road to avoid them. One woman whispered, "That's the boy with the biting dog." Another man said, "Shouldn't be allowed to have an animal like that." Eli heard it all, every word, but he looked at Shadowcom, steady. Loyal, and he knew. "That man tried to hurt me," Eli muttered, "and no one else would have stopped him." Tyler nodded. "People don't see what really happens." They found a new alley. Shadow circled once, then lay down in front of them like a silent shield. Eli sat against the wall, his voice low. "You saved me again." And Shadow, like always, said nothing. But he didn't need to, because the message was already clear. He would never let anyone hurt Eli, no matter what it cost. After the bite, Eli avoided the busy parts of town. People stared more now, whispered. Some crossed the street when they saw Shadow. Even though Shadow stayed quiet and calm, like always, but they didn't understand. He was still protecting them. That hadn't changed. Tyler had started getting stronger, though he still walked with a limp. He didn't talk much, but he stayed close. The three of them were moving like a team now. Quiet, careful. They were in the back alley behind a donut shop when it happened. A man was yelling. His voice was loud and sharp, aimed at a little kid sitting near the dumpsters. "Move it, brat." The man raised a hand too fast. Eli's feet moved on instinct, but Shadow got there first. He stepped between the man and the kid, baring his teeth with a low growl. The man backed away fast. "Keep that dog away from me." The kid ran off. Shadow didn't chase. He just stood there, still and calm, his message clear. Eli ran over. "It's okay," he said, putting a hand on Shadow's back. "It's over." He didn't know someone had been watching from across the street. A girl, maybe 14, backpack slung over one shoulder, a camera hanging from her neck. Clicked. She took a photo, then ducked behind a delivery van. She didn't say a word. The next day, Eli saw her again. She was across the street when they were digging through a trash bin behind a diner. Her eyes were locked on them, but she didn't come close. Shadow saw her too. His ears perked up. He didn't growl, just watched. Eli muttered, "You see her?" Shadow didn't blink. For the next 2 days, she kept showing up. Not close, just far enough to stay hidden. She'd appear, watch, then vanish again. Finally, on the 3rd evening, Eli had enough. He turned the corner near the train tracks and saw her standing there, waiting. This time, she didn't hide. "Why are you following us?" Eli asked. She held up the camera. "I took a picture of your dog the other day." Eli narrowed his eyes. "So, I didn't mean to spy," she said quickly. "But ... the way he stood up for that kid ... it was different." "He does that," Eli said, glancing at Shadow. "He protects people." She stepped forward a little. "Does he always protect you like that?" Eli looked down. "He's all I've got." The girl paused, then nodded. "I'm Sarah. I go to a school nearby. I wasn't trying to get you in trouble, I swear. Eli sighed. People already think he's dangerous. Sarah shook her head. He's not. He's amazing. She opened her bag and pulled out a tablet. She showed Eli the photo. It was perfect. Shadow standing tall, eyes locked forward, his body between the yelling man and the kid. Eli could see himself in the background, running toward them, wide. You take this? He asked. Because it made me feel something, she said. Like, I don't know, like the world isn't all bad. Eli didn't answer. Sarah bit her lip. Can I post it? Just the photo. No names, no location. Why? Because people need to see this kind of thing. Eli looked at Shadow. The dog just sat quietly, tail brushing the ground once. Fine. Eli said, but no faces. Sarah smiled. I promise. That night, they slept near the train station. It was loud, but safe enough. Eli wrapped his arms around Shadow and whispered, Hope we don't regret that. The next morning, Sarah's post had already spread. The dog who stands between fear and safety. Thousands of shares, hundreds of comments, one photo, and everything was about to change. The morning after Sarah's post went viral, Eli woke. Up to noise, too much of it. Phones buzzing, cars slowing near the alley. A man across the street holding his phone, glancing at them, then quickly turning away. Something was wrong. He felt it in his chest before he saw it on a stranger's screen. Tyler was already up, sitting against the wall, chewing on the last of their bread. Eli sat up and whispered, People are looking. Shadow stood, alert, his body tense, tail low, ears forward. Eli didn't know what scared him more, that people were watching, or that no one was trying to help. By noon, it got worse. At first, it was whispers. That's the boy from the photo. Is that the dog, the one that attacked someone? Then it was cameras. Phones lifted without asking. One woman came too. Close. Can I take a picture of you two together? Eli stepped back. Please don't. She frowned. You're internet famous now. You should be proud. Shadow moved between them, silent but clear. The woman stepped away fast. They tried to stay hidden after that. They walked alley to alley, behind fences, under bridges. But someone was always nearby. Always watching. By evening, Sarah found them. She looked pale. Eli, she said breathlessly, you have to go. Someone recognized you. Who? He asked. I don't know, she said. But someone sent your photo to child services. I heard 2 staff members at my school talking about it. They said they're sending someone out tonight. Eli's heart dropped. No, he said. No, they can't. Sarah looked scared. I didn't mean for this to happen. Eli turned to Tyler. We can't stay here. Where will we go? Tyler asked. I don't know. He grabbed his bag and whistled. Shadow didn't hesitate. He fell into step behind them like always. Sarah grabbed Eli's arm. Wait, maybe. I can talk to them. No, Eli snapped. They'll take me away. They'll take him. They just want to help. No, they don't, Eli said. They want rules and papers. They want cages and numbers, not help. Sarah stepped back, silent. Tyler limped after them. What if they find us anyway? Eli looked back. Then we run again. It was dark now. Streetlights flickered on. They crossed into the industrial zone, abandoned buildings, broken fences, trucks that hadn't moved in years. They climbed through a bent gate and ducked inside an empty garage. The windows were broken, but it was dry, quiet. Shadow circled once, then sat by the door. Tyler dropped his bag. I hate this, I know, Eli said. But it's the only way. I thought maybe things were getting better, Tyler said softly. That the world wasn't so bad. Eli didn't answer. He looked at Shadow instead. The dog didn't look scared. He never did. Not even now. Eli whispered, "They'll take. You too, you know that, right?" Shadow turned his head slightly. His eyes were steady. Eli blinked. "You'd go with them, wouldn't you, even if I couldn't?" Shadow didn't move. "I wouldn't blame you," Eli whispered. "But I hope you won't." Then it happened. Voices outside. Footsteps. Eli froze. Search around the back. Tyler whispered, "They're here." Eli grabbed his bag and pointed to the back window. "We go now." They climbed out fast. Eli hit the ground running, Shadow right beside him. Behind them, flashlights lit up the garage. "Stop. Hey, we just..." "Want to talk?" Eli didn't turn. "Keep going," he shouted. They ducked between fences, over cracked pavement. Down a slope behind a storage lot. Eli was out of breath, but he didn't stop. Neither did Shadow. Finally, they reached the river. Water moved slow and dark. On the other side, woods stretched wide. "No bridges," Tyler said, gasping. "We're stuck." Eli looked at Shadow, then down at the edge. "I'm not," he said. He stepped into the water. Cold shot through his legs. Shadow followed without hesitation. Tyler hesitated. "Come on," Eli shouted. The river wasn't deep, but the current pushed hard. Eli fought it, bag held above his head. Shadow swam steady beside him. Tyler followed, teeth clenched. Almost falling twice, they reached the other side and collapsed on the shore. "I can't do this anymore," Tyler said between coughs. Eli rolled onto his back. "We don't have a choice." Shadow shook off beside them, spraying water. Then he sat still, watching the trees, ears alert. For now, they were safe. But Eli knew it wouldn't last. "They found me," he whispered, "but they won't take me." He looked at the dog beside him. "Not without you." And Shadow, wet and muddy and silent, simply leaned against him. They stayed by the river for 2 nights. The forest was quiet, but not peaceful. Eli kept one ear open while Tyler slept curled up near a log. Shadow didn't sleep much. He sat by the river's edge, watching, waiting, as if he knew they weren't safe yet. The river wasn't wide, but it moved steadily, almost like it had a voice of its own. And every hour that passed, Eli felt the pressure rising in his chest. They couldn't go back. They couldn't stay. And sooner or later, someone would find them here too. On the 3rd morning, Eli woke before the others. He sat up slowly, the blanket draped over his shoulders. Shadow was already awake, sitting across from him, watching. Like always, Eli stared at him for a long time. "You don't understand what happens next," he whispered. Shadow tilted his head, listening. "They'll catch us, and they'll take me away, put me in another house, lock you up, or worse." Shadow didn't blink. "I can't let that happen," Eli said softly. He stood, walked to the edge of the river, and picked up a long stick. The same kind they used to play fetch with in the alley behind the diner. He held it in his hand. His grip tightened. Maybe you'd be better off without me," he said. Shadow got to his feet, walking toward him. Eli didn't look at him. He looked at the water, at the trees beyond. "You're smart," he whispered. You'll find someone else. Someone who has a home, food, a bed. Shadow came closer. Eli took a shaky breath and stepped back. Stay, he said. Please. Then he threw the stick across the river. It landed with a splash on the far bank. Go, Eli said, his voice cracked. Go, you're free. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Shadow turned his head, looked at Eli one last time, and jumped in. No, Eli shouted. Stop. But it was too late. The dog swam hard, pushing through the current. His legs moved fast, cutting through the water. Eli ran along the edge, heart pounding. Don't come back, he yelled. You're supposed to leave. Shadow reached the far side, climbed out, shook himself, then turned around. Eli dropped to his knees. Please, he whispered. Please. Don't. Shadow leapt back into the water. He swam across again, slower this time, cold, shaking. But he never stopped. When he reached Eli, the boy was already crying. Shadow stepped forward, soaked and shivering, and pressed his head against Eli's chest. Eli broke down. He wrapped his arms around him and sobbed into his wet fur. You don't give up, do you? He whispered. No matter what I do. Tyler had woken up and was watching from behind the trees. He didn't say anything. Eli stayed on his knees, arms around his dog, water soaking his clothes. I just wanted you to be safe, he whispered, but you won't leave. Shadow looked up at him, quiet and steady. You picked me, Eli said, and you're not letting go. That night, they didn't speak much. They huddled close beneath the stars, the river behind them, and this time, Eli didn't worry about tomorrow, because even if the world came crashing down, Shadow wouldn't run, and Eli, he finally understood he wouldn't either. The woods behind them, Eli led the way, toward the city's edge again. He didn't want to, but they couldn't live by the river forever. Food was getting harder to find. Tyler's limp was worse, and Eli had started coughing at night. By the third day of walking, they came across it, a forgotten junkyard behind. A chain-link fence, the kind nobody checked anymore. They slipped through a hole in the fence and stepped into a maze of rusted cars, broken bikes, and old crates. It wasn't much, but it was quiet, dry. This could work, Eli said. Tyler dropped his bag. I just want to sleep. They found a half-broken van near the back. The doors were stuck, but they climbed in through the side window. Shadow stayed. Outside, nose to the ground, tail twitching. He was searching. Eli climbed out again. What are you doing? Shadow didn't answer, of course. He kept sniffing around a pile of tires. Then he began digging. Slow and steady, Eli walked over. Find something. After a minute, the dog stopped. He backed up and pawed at something buried in the dirt. Eli knelt down. What is that? It was a collar. Old leather, scratched and cracked. A metal tag hung from the front, covered in dust. Eli wiped it clean with his sleeve. There was a name. On it, a single word, etched deep into the tag. Titan. And below that, a military number. Eli stared at it. Is that who you used to be? He whispered. Shadow-no. Titan stood still. He stared at the collar like he recognized it. Like something in his mind had clicked into place. Eli looked at him, voice shaking. You were someone's. You were trained. A soldier's dog. Titan didn't move. But there was something in his eyes. Not fear, not confusion. Just memory. Tyler came over, rubbing his shoulder. What's going on? Eli held up the collar. He had a name before Titan. Tyler frowned. That's a serious name. Yeah, Eli said softly. And he found it. He looked down at the tag again. So maybe someone's looking for you. Titan stepped forward and sniffed the collar once more. Then he walked over to Eli and nudged his hand, like saying, "It doesn't matter now." Eli held the collar tight. "I don't care what your name used to be. You're still mine." Titan wagged his tail once, slow. That night, they slept inside the van, the collar resting beside Eli's pillow. He couldn't stop staring at it. He whispered, "Who were you before all this?" Titan didn't answer, but deep in Eli's chest, he knew one thing for sure. This dog had lived another life, one full of orders, danger, and maybe even war. But now, he'd chosen this one, with them, and that made all the difference. The next morning, Eli tucked the old collar into his backpack. He didn't want to leave it behind, not after what it meant. Titan Shadow, whoever he had been before, that life was part of him now, and Eli couldn't let it go. Tyler was still asleep in the van, curled up tight. The junkyard was quiet. Too quiet. Eli needed food, and they needed answers. So he took Titan and walked toward the edge of the city. Just for an hour, he told himself. They found a gas station and bought a sandwich with the last of their change. Eli split it in half and fed a piece to Titan. He sat with him on the curb, tired eyes watching passing cars. Then he heard it. Boots, steady, heavy, familiar. A man in an old green jacket walked out of the shop. His hair was grey at the sides, and he had a scar across one hand. When he saw Titan, he stopped, froze. His coffee nearly slipped from his hand. "That can't be," the man muttered. "No, that's him." Eli stood up fast. The man took a step forward. "Titan," his voice cracked. "Boy, is that really you?" Titan tilted his head. Eli felt his chest tighten. The man knelt down. "Titan, it's me, Cal. You remember?" Titan didn't move. Cal whistled, short and sharp. Titan flinched. His ears twitched. But he didn't leave Eli's side. "Come here, boy," Cal said gently. "Come on." Eli reached down, placing his hand on Titan's back. "He's not going anywhere," Eli said. "He stays with me." Cal looked up slowly. "Kid, that's my dog. He was mine. We served together. He went missing 2 years ago. We thought he was gone." Eli's voice was soft. "He found me when no one else did." Cal blinked. "How long have you had him?" "A few weeks," Eli replied, "but it feels longer." The man's eyes welled up. "I trained him. I trusted him with my life. He saved people. He saved me." "I know," Eli said. "He saved me too." Cal stood, wiping his face. "He remembers. I know he does. He probably does," Eli whispered. "But he chose me. After everything he's seen, he still chose to stay with me." Cal looked down at Titan. The dog sat calm, tail still, eyes steady. "He doesn't even move," Cal said. "He's just watching." "Because he's waiting for me," Eli said. "Not you." Cal was quiet. Then he asked, "What's your name, kid?" "Eli." "You got somewhere to go?" Eli shook his head. "I've been living with him, on the streets. He's the only reason I'm still standing." Cal looked away. "I've been searching for closure. Thought maybe if I found him, something would heal." Eli nodded. "He's healed a lot, just not the way you expected." They stood in silence. Then Cal sighed. "I don't want to tear him from the only person he trusts now." Eli's voice shook. "Thank you." Cal looked down at Titan 1. Last time, you'd be good to him. I always am, Eli said. Cal reached into his coat and pulled out a patch-worn old fabric badge with Titan's name stitched across it. Give him this, he said. It was his. He earned it. Eli took it with shaking hands as Cal walked away. Titan turned to watch him leave, but he didn't follow. He stayed with Eli, and that was all Eli needed to know. Eli didn't expect to see Cal again, but that evening, just before sunset, he heard boots crunching outside the junkyard van. Titan stood up first, ears alert. Then the familiar voice came. Just me, Cal said softly. Didn't bring anyone. Eli stepped outside. Why'd you come back? Cal nodded, toward a patch of ground near the fire barrel. Thought maybe we could talk. Just talk. Eli hesitated, then waved him over. Titan followed, staying close. They sat on old crates. Cal kept his hands in his pockets. Eli glanced at him, then at the badge still folded in his pocket. Titan. Always hated firecrackers, Cal said. Once we got ambushed on a supply run. He saved 3 guys. Dragged one out with a bullet in his leg. Wouldn't leave without him. Eli was quiet. Cal smiled sadly. He had this way of knowing who needed him most. He'd sit by the quietest soldier, the one no one noticed, and just lean against them. Eli looked down. That's what he does with me. Cal nodded. Yeah, figures. Titan laid at their feet now, stretched between them. You ever lose someone? Eli asked. Cal took a breath. Too many friends, brothers. My wife left while I was deployed, said she couldn't wait anymore. Eli blinked. I lost my mum, house fire. I was 10. Cal turned toward him. I'm sorry, I didn't have anywhere to go. They sent me to foster homes. I kept running. Why? They weren't safe, Eli said. One place locked me in a room for days. Another, the dad yelled too much, broke things. Cal clenched his jaw, and no one helped. Eli shook his head. People looked the other way. I got tired of asking. Titan lifted his head at Eli's voice, then rested it back down. I slept in bus stops, alleys. Then, one night, I was behind a grocery store, and he showed up, soaked, cold, staring at me like he already knew me. Cal smiled faintly. He's like that. I shared my blanket, Eli said. It was the first time I wasn't alone. They both went quiet. Titan shifted, laying his head between their feet. Eli whispered, I don't know what happens next. Cal looked at him. Me neither. I'm just tired, Eli said. Of running, of hiding, of hoping people won't leave. Cal nodded slowly. Me too. The sun dipped lower. The shadows stretched longer. For a while, they didn't talk. Just sat there, 2 broken hearts on 2 crates, with one dog lying quietly between them, keeping them whole and in. That silence, something began to heal. Something quiet. Something real. It started with a photo. One picture of Titan between Eli and Cal, sitting outside the junkyard. Sarah had taken it without asking. She thought it showed something beautiful, 2 lives mending around one dog. But by the next morning, that photo was everywhere. News reporters called Titan the forgotten war dog. Some wanted to know how a veteran lost him. Others asked how a runaway kid kept him safe. People online took sides. Everyone had an opinion. Then the letter came, official, sealed. Stamped. It said Eli and Titan had to appear in family court. A judge would decide who the dog truly belonged to. Eli read it once, then looked at Cal. "Do you want him back?" Cal didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I just want what's best for him." Eli didn't sleep the night before the hearing. He lay on the cold van floor with Titan beside him, one arm wrapped tight around his neck. "I'm scared," Eli whispered. "What if they take you?" Titan lifted his head and licked Eli's cheek. In the morning, they walked into the courthouse. Together, no cameras were allowed inside, but the crowd outside had already formed. The courtroom was quiet. The walls felt too clean, too bright. Eli shifted on the bench beside his lawyer, knees bouncing, across the room. Cal sat alone. Titan lay on the floor between them. Leash held loosely in Eli's hand. The judge walked in robe, glasses, cold eyes. "This is a case about custody," she said. "Not of a child, but of an animal. A military dog named Titan, registered to one Calvin Brooks. The dog was declared missing in action 2 years ago. Recently found in the care of a minor, Elijah Carter, who has no permanent residence and no legal guardianship." She looked at both of them. "Today, we must decide where this dog belongs." Eli's chest tightened. He looked down at Titan, who was calm. To calm, the judge called Cal first. He stepped forward slowly. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "tell us about your connection to the dog." Cal took a deep breath. "Titan saved lives. He's more than a dog. He was my partner. I thought he was. Lost forever. You trained him." "Yes, Your Honor." "Do you believe he remembers you?" "I do," but Cal's eyes dropped to the floor. "I also believe he's bonded to the boy now." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You're saying he no longer belongs to you. I'm saying I love him. But love doesn't always mean keeping someone." The room went silent. Then she turned to Eli. "Elijah Carter, stand." Eli rose slowly, hands shaking. "You've been living with this dog for how long?" "About 3 months," Eli said quietly. "No family, no address, no ma'am. And why do you believe Titan should stay with you?" Eli swallowed. "Because he chose me." The judge leaned back. "You understand dogs can't speak for themselves, right?" "Yes," Eli said. "But Titan already told you everything." She tilted her head. "And how's that? He's still lying by my feet." The courtroom stayed still. The judge glanced at the bailiff. "Unclip the leash." Eli froze. "What? Unclip it? Let the dog decide." Eli hesitated, then slowly removed the leash. Titan stood. The room held its breath. He looked at Cal, then at Eli. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, without sound, Titan walked to Eli, curled up beside him, and laid his head in the boy's lap. Eli's eyes filled. The judge nodded. Decision made. Titan stayed right where he was, because he already had. It had been 2 days since the courtroom decision. 2 days since the whole world saw Titan choose Eli over everyone else. They were back at the junkyard now. The crowd had faded. The noise quieted. But Eli hadn't stopped thinking about what came next. Cal visited once, just to say goodbye. He left behind a small bag of food and a warm nod. No words, just a quiet look that said everything. Eli sat outside the van that afternoon, legs crossed, Titan's head resting in his lap. Tyler was asleep inside. Then he heard a voice behind him. "Hey." He turned. It was Sarah. She looked nervous, holding something close to her chest. "I found this," she said. "I thought maybe you'd want it back." She stepped forward and held it out. It was the same old blanket. the one Eli had first shared with Titan under the rain. Except now, it was different. The rips were stitched. The dirt was gone. It smelled like clean cotton. Eli stared at it, stunned. "You kept it?" Sarah nodded. "After I saw the photo go viral, I didn't know what to do. But I remembered this. It reminded me of something important." Eli reached out, took it in his hands, and pulled it against his chest. "I thought it was gone forever." Sarah smiled. "It was the first kind thing I saw on the street. A kid with nothing, still sharing." Titan stood, sniffed the blanket, then curled right against it. Eli looked down and whispered, "It's where everything started." Sarah sat beside him. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," she said. "I just wanted people to see what I saw." "You did," Eli said, "and somehow it brought us here." Titan let out a soft sigh and placed his head on the folded edge of the blanket, like he knew exactly what it was. Eli chuckled quietly. "You remember, huh?" Sarah looked at the two of them. "You're not just a story, Eli. You're real. And people care." Eli shook his head. "People cared for a second. Then they moved on." "Not all of them," Sarah said. "Some stayed." Eli was quiet for a long time. Then he whispered, "This blanket. It's not just cloth. It's a promise. One I made the first night he found me." Sarah stood, brushing off her jeans. "Then keep it." Eli nodded. "I will," as she walked away. Titan curled tighter around the blanket, and Eli sat back, hands pressed to the soft, patched fabric in that moment. Nothing else mattered, because sometimes the smallest things hold the biggest memories. The night after Sarah brought the blanket back, Eli didn't sleep much, not because he was cold, not because he was afraid, but because for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he was surviving. He felt like maybe, just maybe, he was waiting for something better. It came the next morning. Titan perked up first, ears forward, tail thumping twice. Eli sat up and saw a truck pulling into the junkyard, old, dusty. With tools rattling in the back, Cal stepped out. Eli stayed seated, quiet, until Cal walked up and looked down at him. "I built something," Cal said simply. "Come, see." Eli glanced at Titan, then stood. They followed Cal back to the truck. He didn't say much as he drove, just tapped the steering wheel to a quiet tune only he could hear. When they pulled around the back of an old repair shop, Eli saw it. A small wooden structure stood near the fence. Nothing fancy, just four walls, a roof, and a door made of old panels, a window with no glass, a porch light that barely buzzed. Cal turned off the engine. "It's not perfect," he said, "but it's safe, and it's yours." Eli stepped out slowly. "What is this?" "A place," Cal replied. "To rest, to breathe. No rules, no locks, just warmth." Eli walked up the steps, pushed the door open. Inside was a mattress on the floor, 2 folded blankets, and a crate in the corner labeled food. Another box held clean clothes, socks, and a flashlight. There was a note taped to the wall in Cal's handwriting. "Come in any time. You don't need permission." Titan stepped in behind him and sniffed the space before lying down near the corner. Cal leaned against the doorframe. "I know you're used to people making promises and breaking them, so I won't make one." Eli turned around. "But if you stay here," Cal said, "I'll look out for you, and I'll never try to own you." Eli stared for a second, then looked at Titan. The dog stared back, ears soft, eyes calm. He was waiting for Eli to decide. Eli nodded, We'll stay. Cal smiled a little. You can paint the walls if you want. I don't care about the walls, Eli said. It already feels like home. Later that day, Cal dropped off 2 sandwiches, a bag of apples, and a toolbox with simple stuffer, screwdriver, tape wire. Eli spent the evening fixing a loose board on the floor, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Tyler showed up too. Sarah had told him where to go. He sat on the steps and grinned. You really have your own place now? He asked. Eli nodded. Looks like it. Tyler peeked inside. There's no lock. Eli looked at Titan, curled by the doorway. Don't need one. Tyler smiled. Then, I guess this really is yours. That night, the stars peeked through the window, and the air was cold, but Eli was warm. He curled up next to Titan, the patched blanket over both of them, and as his eyes closed, he whispered, We're not running anymore. Titan didn't move. He just stayed close, because sometimes home isn't for walls and a key. Sometimes it's a dog who never leaves, and a man who finally stays. The night was quiet, just like the others had been since they moved into the little shelter behind Cal's repair shop. Eli had just drifted off, the patched blanket pulled up to his chin, Titan sleeping near the door like always. Then the growl came, low, deep, not playful, not gentle. Eli sat up fast. What is it? He whispered. Titan stood now, body stiff, ears forward. Then he let out a long, sharp howl, one that cut through the silence like a warning siren. Eli jumped to his feet. Titan was already out the door, paws pounding into the dirt. Eli banged on Cal's back door. Something's wrong. Cal swung it open in seconds. What is it? Titan heard something. He ran. They followed the sound, barefoot and half awake. Titan's barking led them around the corner of the next alley. Smoke, thick, black smoke, rolling up the side of an old brick building. There's a fire, Cal muttered. Stay back. No, Eli said, coughing already. He went in. The building was a rundown duplex, one side already glowing orange behind broken windows. Titan's barks echoed inside. Oh no, Eli gasped. There are people in there. Get help, Cal shouted. I'll knock doors. Eli ran down the block, banging on anything with light in the window. Fire. Get out. There's a fire. Sirens wailed in the distance now. Someone had already called back at the building. Titan reappeared in the smoke-filled doorway. But he wasn't alone. A small child, maybe 5, clung to his back. Coughing, Eli raced forward, helped pull the kid out. Titan ran back inside before anyone could stop him. Wait, Eli screamed. Titan, come back. But the dog had already vanished into the black dot. 2 more minutes passed. Then another bark, muffled. Weaker dot. He came out again, this time nudging 2 kids. Maybe siblings, half-conscious, stumbling through the haze. Eli grabbed their arms. Come on, follow my voice. The fire was spreading fast now. Fire trucks screeched around the corner, hoses uncoiled. Water hit the flames. Titan staggered out once more, eyes blinking, fur singed near one leg. Eli ran to him, dropped to his knees. You're okay. You're okay. Titan collapsed, breathing hard but alive. Cal rushed over. He led them out. Every one of them. Firefighters confirmed it minutes later. He got 3 kids out before we even got here. That dog's a hero. Eli stroked his fur. You did it, boy. Titan let out a soft whine and pushed his nose into Eli's chest. One of the parents ran over, hugging her child tightly. She looked at Eli, tears in her eyes. "That dog saved my babies. How can I ever thank you?" Eli shook his head. "It wasn't me." Titan lifted his head just enough to look at the family. The mother knelt and touched his paw. "Thank you." That night, they stayed at the shelter. Cal wrapped Titan's paw in ointment and clean bandages. Eli never left his side. "You're still that soldier," Eli whispered, "still saving lives." Titan closed his eyes, safe, tired, but proud, and Eli knew, once a protector, always a protector. It was supposed to be a quick trip. Eli had left just after lunch. The plan was simple: check the corner store, maybe find a little food, and come right back. Titan had stayed behind at the shelter, still limping from the fire, but alert as ever. Hours passed. By sunset, Titan was sitting at the edge of the curb outside Cal's shop, eyes locked on the road. He didn't move when Cal brought out a bowl of water. He didn't budge when Tyler called his name. He just waited. The sky darkened. Streetlights flickered on. A breeze stirred the dirt near his paws. Still, Titan sat like stone. Inside the shelter, Cal paced. Something's wrong. He should have been back by now. Tyler peeked out the window. He's never stayed out this long. Cal grabbed his jacket. "I'll go look." But before he could step out, Titan stood up fast. His ears perked. His nose lifted. Then he bolted. Cal and Tyler ran to the door, watching as the dog tore down the sidewalk, faster than he'd moved in days. At the far end of the block, just beyond the bakery, a figure appeared. Eli, he was limping, one hand clutching his side. His face was scraped, his shirt torn, one eye swelling. Titan reached him in seconds. Eli dropped to his knees, and Titan wind circling him, licking his face over and over. Cal rushed up. "What happened?" "I'm okay," Eli panted. "I had to fight for it." "For what?" Tyler asked. Out of breath, Eli held up a crumpled paper bag, half soaked with grease. "Food. For us." Cal helped him up. "You could have been killed." "I didn't mean to get in trouble," Eli said. "Some guy tried to take my bag. I wasn't gonna let him." "You're hurt," Cal muttered. "Come on, let's clean you up." Eli looked at Titan. He knew. He was waiting the whole time. Cal nodded. He always knows. Back at the shelter, Eli sat on the mattress while Cal cleaned the cut on his cheek. Tyler opened the bag and pulled out a few crushed sandwiches. Titan lay at Eli's feet, head resting on his paws, eyes watching every movement. "You're mad at me," Eli whispered. Titan thumped his tail once, but didn't move. "I didn't want you to worry." Cal shook his head. "He's a protector. Worrying is what he does." Eli leaned down, touching his forehead to Titan's. "I'm sorry." Titan licked his nose. That night, Eli didn't leave his side, not even for a second. The patched blanket covered them both, and for the first time in a long time, Eli finally understood he wasn't just being protected, he was being waited for, because Titan didn't just guard his life, he guarded his return. 1 year later, everything looked different. Eli had grown, a little taller, a little stronger. His bruises had faded. His voice was clearer, but his eyes, those still held the same fire, the same quiet that only Titan understood. They still lived behind Cal's repair shop, but the shelter had been rebuilt, painted, and filled with soft lights and books on a shelf. It wasn't just a place to sleep now. It was home. But that day, they stood somewhere else entirely inside a small museum on the edge of town. The lights were warm, the floor shiny, and people whispered as they moved from one display to the next. Sarah had called it a community exhibit, something she'd started after her post went viral. Something to remind people that kindness didn't always wear uniforms or come with a title. At the center of the room stood a glass case. Eli stepped closer, Titan at his side. Inside the case was a folded blanket, frayed patched at the corners, the same blanket Eli had once offered to a cold dog in a rainy alley, the same one that had covered them night after night, when they had nothing else. Next to the blanket was a weathered leather collar. The nameplate read, Titan, and between them sat a photo. Just one. Eli curled up beside the dog, asleep, Titan's head resting on Eli's chest. A small plaque was fixed to the glass. The boy, the blanket, and the dog. Sometimes a little. Warmth can save 2 lives. Cal stood behind them, arms crossed, trying not to cry. Sarah stepped beside Eli. I wanted people to remember, not the news stories or courtrooms, just this. Eli stared at the photos. I didn't think anyone would care about a blanket. They don't care about the blanket, Sarah said. They care about what it meant. Titan lay down in front of the glass, tail brushing the floor gently. He still remembers, Eli whispered. Sarah smiled. How could he forget? Visitors walked by, reading the sign, staring at the photo, nodding slowly. A few took pictures. One little girl pointed and whispered, that dog's a hero. Eli knelt beside Titan and rubbed his ears. You always were. A woman nearby wiped her eyes. Her son reached out, pointing at the collar. Why'd they save that old thing? Eli turned toward him. Because that old thing saved me. Later, that night, back at the shelter, Eli tucked Titan in with the same old blanket, another one now. Not the one behind glass, but still warm, he whispered. We made it. Titan thumped his tail once. And just before the light was turned off, Eli added, we're not just a story, we're proof. Proof that love doesn't always need words. Sometimes it only takes a blanket and a dog who never walks away. Did this story touch your heart? Give it a thumbs up, share it around, and drop your location in the comments.